After 3 tumultuous decades marked by conflict and instability, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda have officially signed a peace deal. This agreement, brokered in the U.S. capital, offers a glimmer of hope for a region long plagued by violence and humanitarian crises. To help us understand the complexities and implications of this historic signing, we are now joined by security analyst Dr. Faith Mabera. Dr. Mabera, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What level of confidence should we really put into this peace deal, considering that this is not the first time Rwanda and the DRC have signed a peace accord, and now we even know about the Pretoria Peace Accord, and it blew up?
Absolutely. Good morning, Aldrin, and good morning to the viewers. Yes, I think that's the big question that's looming over our heads, particularly with this announcement of the deal brokered by the US and signed last Friday. Interestingly, as you've alluded, we've seen a history of violations of previous peace agreements and ceasefires. In fact, the numerous ceasefires that have been broken during the duration of the conflict that began in late November 2021. A few aspects I think that we need to consider in really weighing the prospects for this particular deal to sort of take traction. One is the question of involvement of actors. Notably, the exclusion of the M23 is a key factor. As we all know, the M23 is the primary military actor in the conflict. So its exclusion really raises a number of questions as to the sort of feasibility of this deal really seeing longevity as we see implementation. Secondly, is the question of whether there is a trade-off that has been made with the US essentially emphasizing economic incentives and providing that to the key actors while ignoring or sweeping under the rug the structural drivers of conflict, the local drivers of conflict that have been at the key in terms of really fueling the cycles of political and armed conflict that we've seen in the DRC. Thirdly, in what has been described as a peace for minerals deal, which is essentially the lingo that has been used to describe this deal facilitated by the US. It's also the question of, while the US is looking to gain access to critical mineral and the DRC's vast mineral wealth, is whether the DRC government in itself is even able to guarantee security and access to US companies looking to exploit the commodity and resource base in the DRC. So these are some of the questions that we sort of need to really have a look on. And also the fact that reports on the ground at the moment, even as we speak, Aldrina, that there is continuing violence. So on one hand, while there's touting of a peace deal, the M23 is still keeping its eye in terms of making significant territorial gains. They will not be so keen to lose essentially the vast swaths of territory that they've gained in the course of the 2+ years that they've been engaging in fighting the Kinshasa government.
Yeah. Interesting as well is that there will be respect for each other's territorial sovereignty and stop aiding rebel forces. And as you've indicated, the absence of the so-called rebel forces and the M23, as well, some may argue the FDLR not being part of that. How is that possible to get to that point? And is there an acceptance, at least from both parties, that they've actually been sponsoring these two rebel groups?
So Rwanda has categorically rejected, at least on the face of it, any involvement with the M23 rebel group. The line that they've taken, official line and rhetoric that Rwanda has assumed, is that they're in it in terms of ensuring their own national security. So rhetorically, they've been negating that affiliation with the M23, although reports and evidence from the ground says or suggests otherwise. But in looking at the prospects or the feasibility in terms even from research of how the conditions that need to be in place for a peace agreement to essentially take hold is the bigger question of inclusivity of actors, relevant actors, which we've addressed, but also the ability, like I've mentioned, to really tackle the drivers of conflict. So on one hand, while this deal is really focused on the economic agenda, and this really also hints at the largely transactional nature of the Trump administration. And of course, the US administration has been having its eye on another key asset, which is gaining and really pouring money into the Lobeto corridor, which is essentially this rail line that connects the DRC's very rich copper belt with Angola's Atlantic coast. So they've poured almost 500 million into that infrastructure investment, and they're looking to reap gains of that. So essentially a very oversized focus on the economic agenda while papering over the decades-long grievances, local drivers of conflict, structural dynamics, really the root of the conflict, which has informed the larger situation in the DRC. And of course, we can't overlook the broader regional geopolitics of the region. The fact that in as much as we would like to talk about the conflict as essentially a internal struggle between the security sector operators and armed actors in the DRC landscape, there's also a regional layer to it. And we see the involvement of actors, for instance, like Uganda, we've talked about Rwanda, that have also had historical involvement in really fueling the cycles of violence in the DRC. So those are some of the issues that, if continually being overlooked, I think really diminish the prospects of a successful or feasibility of a long-standing peace agreement at this moment.
Dr. Mabera, thank you so much for making time for us.